Good morning. I'm in Stillacoom, Washington at the ferry terminal, and I'm going to start my next major road trip. This one is going to be to Arizona. Now, I actually started my last major road trip right here at the ferry terminal in Stillacoom, and that was supposed to be going all the way to Maine. So I might actually make this a tradition to start all of my major road trips right here at the ferry terminal in Stillacoom, Washington. The plan for this road trip generally is that I'm going to take about 1 to 2 weeks to get down to Arizona, a couple weeks in Arizona, and then about a week or so to get back to the Seattle area. So the route generally is going to be, I'm going to go down to Portland, then I'm going to cut across to the Oregon coast, go all the way down the coast to San Diego. I might pop inland a little bit, do some of the national forests like the Siuslaw National Forest, Klamath National Forest, Trinity National Forest, but I'm going to stay generally close to the coast. Once I get to San Diego, I'm going to cut over to Arizona, and then on the way back I'm going to kind of do more of an inland route. I'm going to go to Las Vegas, do Death Valley, and then from there, depending on the weather, I'm either going to go up towards Reno or I'm going to go more inland along Interstate 5, and then kind of from there we'll see what happens. So as far as today is concerned, I'm going to go down to Portland. I got to deal with some registration issues with my van, and then depending on how long that takes is how far we'll go today. Hopefully I can make it all the way out to the Oregon coast. So here we go, my next road trip to Arizona. Before heading out, here's a couple of shots terminal. I have done a whole video on Stillacoom and DuPont, Washington. I'm getting underway now. I have a few hours of driving to get to Portland. Alright, I'm in Kalama, Washington, and I've been driving for a couple hours. I've made a few short stops. And just for reference, I purchased my van in Portland, Oregon, and I've been having a lot of issues getting the registration for it resolved. I've actually had a couple phone calls today with the dealership down in Portland, as well as the titling office, and I quickly realized that I'm not going to get the registration issue resolved even if I showed up to the dealership today. So I'm going to slow down the pace quite a bit, and that's why I've stopped here in Kalama. Every time I drive on Interstate 5, I've seen this like waterfront area with a public market, and I've always wanted to stop at it. So I figured now would be a perfect opportunity, so I'm going to hang out for a little bit here. So on the right we have the Columbia River, and then ahead we have some restaurants, a hotel, and the public market that I was referring to. So I'll do the tour of the waterfront area, then I'll probably cross under Interstate 5 and then do the downtown area of Kalama. Kalama's not a real large town, I think only a couple thousand people. And then depending on how long that takes, I may end up staying the night here in Kalama. Alright, I'm at McMenamins Kalama Harbor Lodge. And I want to talk about McMenamins for a moment. For those who are not from the area, McMenamins is a Northwest company. They have restaurants, hotels, second-run movie theaters, and even a few live music events. They all have a little bit of a hippie vibe, but I just love the craftsmanship and the decoration that they have in all their buildings. Okay, this is another McMenamins facility. It's just up the road from the hotel. This is more of a beer garden. I figured I'd show this now. This is a McMenamins on the Columbia. It's actually in Vancouver, Washington. And actually, I filmed this a different time. I was in Vancouver. Alright, this is the public market. I did peek my head in, but it's the middle of winter and it's raining and it's a Tuesday, so the place was completely dead and most of the shops weren't even open at the time. There is a little public pier in between the McMenamins Hotel and the public market. There was a sign that kind of made it seem like there was a river cruise that stopped here. They also have this little public amphitheater in between the McMenamins Hotel and the public market. I didn't realize how many ships and barges traverse this portion of the Columbia River. In just the few hours that I was out here, there's probably at least 4 or 5 ships out here, plus a few that are at anchor. I mean, I had heard that there is a bunch of ships that come down from eastern Washington to carry wheat and other produce. There are a few grain silos along the Columbia over here, and I've also seen a few grain trains passing by. But I'm going to head into downtown Kalama now. If you're walking from the waterfront into downtown Kalama, it's a little bit of an obstacle course. You have to cross a road, then take a pedestrian bridge over the railroad tracks, and then under Interstate 5. But it does give a good view of the waterfront from the pedestrian bridge. This is looking north from the pedestrian bridge. These are some murals under Interstate 5. Okay, I made it into the downtown area. Kalama is a pretty typical small town. It just has one main road through the center. A good portion of Kalama is built on a hillside, and I figured I'd walk up the hill to see if I could get a good view of the city. And I found this little path that led up the hill. This is about the best spot that I could find to see a view of the city. I mean, there's probably better spots. The weather's really not ideal today. Alright, it's much later. I did walk around a little bit more after going up the hill. And I'm now back at the waterfront. So yeah, since it's so late, I'm gonna stay here tonight. Good morning. I'm still in the Kalama area, and last night, once I got done with the tour, it was already pretty late and dark, and I just didn't feel like driving anymore yesterday, so stayed the night here. And then I was looking at the map of the area, and I realized the trail that I was walking on yesterday by the McMenamins facility and all that continues a little bit further south, so I figure I'd check it out, walk down it a little bit, and then we'll head out from here. Once I leave here, probably head to the Ridgefield National Wildlife Refuge, and then we'll kind of parallel the Columbia River into Vancouver, hang out there maybe for a little bit, and then we'll go from there. As far as where I go tonight, I'm not entirely sure yet. This is as far down on the trail as I got. The trail is actually flooded right here, and they're starting to get into some industrial area. Alright, I'm entering into the Ridgefield National Wildlife Refuge, and this portion of the refuge has an auto tour route. You're not actually allowed to get out of the vehicle this time of year because the birds are nesting. So here we go on the auto tour route. So there are a bunch of pullouts along the auto tour, that's where I'm at now. There's a duck blind ahead. I think this is going to be a perfect opportunity to do a time lapse. Alright, I'm headed out of the wildlife refuge. It might be hard to tell, but it's getting on in the day and probably should have some lunch soon. Okay, I came back up to the town of Ridgefield to have lunch. I'm by the waterfront. There's actually a boat ramp and a kayak launch point over here. That river off to the left is actually the Lake River. It splits off from the Columbia River. And beyond that, there's a bunch of marshlands. But I'm gonna walk around, stretch my legs a little bit on this little hiking trail that they have on the waterfront, and then we'll start to do some driving. I think Vancouver is only about 20 minutes away, 30 minutes away, something like that. So probably be the next stop. The waterfront trail that I was on actually leads into a trail in the Ridgefield National Wildlife Refuge. That trail in the Ridgefield National Wildlife Refuge is closed right now because it is hunting season. Okay, I'm near Vancouver Lake and I'm on the Frenchman Bar Trail. I've got a lot of steps in for today, so I figured I'd come over here. I know about these trails. I've been here one time before, so yep. I think once I get done walking around, I'll probably drive maybe another hour tonight towards the Oregon coast, but it'll probably be a lot later, so I won't film any of that. And then probably tomorrow we'll make it to the Oregon coast, maybe the Lincoln City area. But I'm going to save that for the next video in this series on the road trip to Arizona. Make sure to subscribe and hit the notification so you know when the next part of this road trip comes out.